Yo, yo, yo. Hey, guys, welcome back to another awesome edition of the Best Practice Show podcast. This is installment number 2 in our interview. Dr. Christian Coachman and myself interview one of the most brilliant teachers in dentistry, Dr. Bill Robbins. And in this episode, he describes the difference in teaching and presenting a beautiful case in dentistry. Check it out. I know you guys will enjoy it, and we'll see you soon.
Now, going back to your first point, systematic. One of the things I mentioned at the beginning is the difference between presenting a beautiful case and teaching, right?
Yes.
And most of the people on stages you see are clinicians presenting great cases one after the other. Now, presenting great cases one after the other, just look at this case. I did this, this, and this. Look at the outcome. Amazing. Next case. Boom. This is what most people do, right? This is not, for me, not teaching. This is just showcasing something that looks good,
Right.
showing what happened in a case. Now, when you are invited to a lecture, you think about a topic, how do you move away from just putting one case after the other and creating a lecture that is not about the case, but it's about the topic? It's about the lesson that you want people to learn. What is the process that you go through to structure that? If you can give some more insights about it.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's
Part
the
of
secret.
answer is once again to surround yourself with really smart people that are smarter than you are. And we mentioned my teaching partner Jeff Rouse before. So when I left academics 25 years ago, I was in full-time academics at the dental school in San Antonio, and Jeff invited me to leave academics and go into private practice with him, and I decided to do it. And so I brought from the academic world a very literature-based, systematic, objective way of looking at dentistry. And I also was a good photographer, and I was all about doing good photography and making serial photographs of a technique. And so I was very much of the technician. I was the one that thought in terms of the science and in terms of literature. And I was very much about being literature-based, being evidence-based in what I was teaching. Jeff was different. Jeff was intellectually the most talented, maybe other than, I can think of a couple of other people that are as talented intellectually as Jeff, but I know of nobody that's more talented intellectually. So I just happened to fall into a relationship with one of the smartest dentists on earth. And so I was the guy I had the good emotional intelligence. Jeff was very shy, and he wasn't great in front of a group. But intellectually, he was so far above me. And so our marriage early on was a marriage made in heaven, because I brought a skill set that he didn't have, and he brought a skill set that I didn't have. And when we practiced together for a few years, it was essentially the richest time in my life intellectually, because he was so smart and he challenged me in my thinking process so much. And at that point in time, we were both becoming devotees of John Coy's, and we were taking Coy's courses, and we were learning about facially generated diagnosis. And we both believed that it was brilliant, and we started incorporating that into our practice. But we also felt that there needed to be an equal emphasis on the gingival levels, and that was the genesis of the global diagnosis system. Coy's emphasized incisal edge position, we emphasized gingival levels. And it was sort of a beautiful marriage between those two things. So I think I'm sort of tiptoeing around your question, because
Yeah.
Jeff Rouse had a giant impact on the way I thought and sort of this linear approach to treatment planning instead of, this and this and sort of a shoot from the hip. We developed this very linear approach to treatment planning. And the thing that I saw early on as I was teaching treatment planning to young dentists is the mistake that we make in dentistry, and we still make it today for sure. In medicine, our physician colleagues gather data, number one. Number two, they make a diagnosis. And number three, they make a treatment plan. In dentistry, we gather data and we go straight to the treatment plan. We leave out the diagnosis. And in my mind, that is one of the biggest problems in dental education today. And that is we don't make a diagnosis before we make a treatment plan. And that's what Jeff and I, that was the systematic approach that Jeff and I created. That is, you must make a diagnosis, because if you have a diagnosis, then there's only a limited number of ways you can treat each given diagnosis. And then it makes it much more objective. So I think treatment planning needs to become more objective and less subjective by making a diagnosis before we make a treatment plan.
It's actually poor documentation. Not only documentation, is poor documentation, is partial documentation, is no diagnosis, poor decisions, and then you have the plan.
Yes,
right?
Well said.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's the reason why, when we develop the whole 3D software workflow that we use, it's basically inspired from what we learned from you. DSD didn't reinvent, anything. We didn't invent any concept in terms of treatment planning. We just learned what people like you and Coys and Spear and Kokich and Shish and so many others, the thinking process was out there already. Now you bring 3D technology and you say like, okay, the thinking process is there. Very few are using that thinking process, unfortunately. How can technology actually help translate this thinking process visually, right? And it's beautiful to see how we can explain facially generated treatment planning and diagnosis with 3D software. How can we explain global diagnosis with 3D software, right? You just look at the images that the software is providing you, and you open your book and you go through the 4, 5, 6 rule there, and you just go step by step looking into the 3D software, and you have the perfect world.
So I've got a question for you, Christian. You've been in this world more than anybody else for the last decade and a half. So my first question is, why is it still so slow to be adopted across the board? And secondly, how long do you think it's going to take before it becomes essentially a treatment standard rather than a gee whiz treatment option?
So Coys and Spear, they came up with this, and Rick Robley, I would definitely add him there.
Yeah,
so Rick
sure.
Robley at first, Coys, Spear, all these guys, they came up with this idea in the early 90s. And still people are not using it. You have a brilliant book that is almost 10 years out, and still people don't know about it. So I used to get frustrated with that. I don't get frustrated anymore. I just think that it's the natural path, right? It's the natural pace of things. It's the natural implementation process that, people just need time to go little by little into things. So the other thing that I see is that neither one of us, all of us, and I'm being very, very bold here to try to put me into this group of bringing these new ideas, starting from Robley, Coys, and Spear, and all of you guys, all the way to people like me trying to bring this into 3D and teach people how to bring this to their daily reality. That's what we struggle right? We tell people you have to use it every day. There's no way out. Every single patient needs to be seen on the same path, with the same diagnosis, with the same approach, the same documentation, the same brainstorm, the same interdisciplinary analysis, right? Everything makes so much sense. Everything is so obvious, actually, right? It's so obvious. We see your lecture on the, it's a 10-minute lecture, the 4, 5, 6 global diagnosis. It's so obvious. You're like, damn, this is ridiculous. I need to do this. And then people leave and they don't, right? And they don't. And one thing that I am realizing is that to do the dentistry that we dream with, to do the dentistry that we love, to do the dentistry that we get inspired with from our mentors, first and foremost, we need to inspire our patients to pay for it. We need to convince our patients about it. We need to onboard them on these crazy ideas. You know, global diagnosis, you know, if we want people to use it on every first, second diagnosis appointment, we need to show people how to sell this idea, how to make patients fall in love with global diagnosis. You need to make your patient fan of global diagnosis. You need to make your patient fan of facially generated treatment planning, because they need to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. People say that they do things, they don't think about money. This is BS, you know, that they are doing all for the patient. BS, you know, it's all blah, blah. At the end of the day, people will implement, you know, technologies, concepts, philosophies when they see that the return on the investment is happening. And so we need to master the process of helping people become storytellers, as you said, about these concepts. How can you tell this story on a non-dental way so people will embrace it? When people start knocking the doors of your students, I came, look, knock, knock, knock. I came here because I want global diagnosis. People will be like, God damn it, where's that book? I need to do this right now, and I need to do it over and over again, you know? And then another patient says, oh, I only came because of global diagnosis. You know, do you do that? Do you do global diagnosis? And you know, we need to learn with Invisalign. Regardless if you like it or not, they did it. They made patients love it, and they told the story, and they started to make patients knock at our door, say, I want to do Invisalign. Do you do Invisalign? No, but I do something better. Goodbye. Ciao, ciao. I'm going to look for somebody else. And then suddenly everybody's like, oh my God, I need to do Invisalign. And now people are doing Invisalign even when you don't need to do Invisalign. So we need a company like Invisalign embracing Rick Robley's book. Imagine if Invisalign, you know, would study global diagnosis and say, this is our next mission. We're going to make the world love global diagnosis. We're going to push this world, and we're going to make patients understand the value of it, and we're going to make patients ask for it. Then the magic happens. That's my opinion.
Where do you think we are? Where do you think we are? And I'm interested to know your idea also, Kirk. Where do you think we are on the innovation curve related to digital smile design and using that concept as a communication tool? I mean, the innovation, you know, curve comes down and back up. Yep. Where are we on that curve?
It's hard to say. I speculate all the time, but you have, I mean, it's almost the bell curve of learning. And Bill, I've heard you describe it. You know, you've got these people that will adopt it, they do it, and it improves their lives. And then you've got the others that listen and digest it, and it takes a while before they get it, and then they move in that direction. But it's really hard to say. You know, I do know that the people that start with the beginner's mindset and they enter these courses with humility and they use it, they always come back and say they're making progress. But that's a hard one for me to answer. Christian, your thoughts?
I would say, I would ask, you know, how many people, what is the percentage of doctors in US, Bill, that you think are using facially generated dental facial? They are using the book from Robley, the articles from Coys and Spear, and your book, Global Diagnosis. What is the percentage of doctors that you think are using it routinely as a principle to diagnose and plan their cases? 10% of the doctors, maybe?
No, I don't think it's that high. I think it is only people that have taken Coy's courses or been to the Spear Center or the handful that have heard me speak through the year. I do not think it's anywhere near 10% of American dentists are using facially generated diagnosis. I think the number would be significantly less.
So think about that. Now, to use DSD, first you need to understand these principles. There's no way out. There's no way a doctor will take full advantage of DSD if this doctor doesn't understand what you, Coy, Spear, Robley are saying. First, you need to understand it. And first, you need to already be in the middle of the journey of using it routinely. And then you put technology on top that brings another level of challenge of implementation. So I don't know if the percentage is much smaller than 10. I think in US specifically, there's a decent number of doctors that are following that philosophy, people that are part of Seattle Study Club, Dawson Academy, Coy, Spear, so even if let's guess 8% of doctors in US are following, these principles routinely. I would cut this in half when you add digital. Half of them are mastering these principles plus digital. So you're talking about 2, 3, 4% of doctors that are actually doing what we call, not to put a brand DSD on it, so we are moving away from brand to what we call comprehensive digital care. That's my new name, comprehensive digital care. So it's not about DSD company, DSD brand. It's the concept of using everything we learned from interdisciplinary treatment planning, diagnosis and treatment planning. That's the comprehensive approach. Using smart technology, that's the digital, and understanding the relationship with the patient, that's the care. So comprehensive digital care brings the 3 pillars. I would say 2-3% of doctors in US are already enjoying this routinely. So there's a big market for us to explore in terms of education.
Well, and we all are bemoaning the way dentistry is moving in the world, and certainly the United States, and that is to the corporate model. And people commonly ask me, do you think there's going to be, is it going to ultimately be all corporate? Is dentistry eventually going to become all corporate? And I don't think so. I do believe there's always going to be a place at the top. Now, I don't know if that's because that's where I am, and I believe there'll be a place for me, but I do think that there's always going to be a place for this. And in fact, it's the perfect way not to have to do the other.
That's what we call, it's like being the 3-star Michelin restaurant, all these principles that we are talking are the shortcut for a doctor to be the 3-star Michelin restaurant and not be inside corporate dentistry if that's not what you want, right? I don't think that in the future corporate dentistry will be bad. The same way that medical hospitals are not necessarily bad, physicians are not running their hospital, they are working for hospitals, and we're going to be very similar. Dentistry will evolve to that, but you will always have space for the very good private practice, delivering high quality, unique experiences. But you need to learn these principles. You need to differentiate yourself. But the corporate world, you mentioned corporate world, will learn these principles as well. And that's another path.
Exactly.
That is going to happen very fast, because the moment that the corporate world understands that this will generate predictability, that this will improve quality in a more consistent way, that this will differentiate themselves. I see corporations already looking at these principles and thinking, there's very smart business there. And you're going to see chains of clinics starting to incorporate this technology, starting to incorporate these principles, of course, with the business mindset, but bringing this more mainstream.
Well, for sure. And with the economies of scale, they're in the perfect position to do this.
Yep.
They can afford the technology better than the mom and pop operation can afford it.
Yep.
So there's no question. It'll just be interesting to see if and when which of the companies do adopt it, because it will take a real commitment for a corporate organization.
It's gonna happen.
Into interdisciplinary treatment planning.
It's gonna happen, and of course, corporate is like, I always use Ferrari and Fiat, right? You're never gonna have on Fiat everything that you have on Ferrari. They're the same company, they're the same, but Fiat benefits. They handpick the amazing things that were developed on Formula One Ferrari, and they dumb down a little bit, and they choose the things that can be used on mainstream that makes the Fiat a better car. Definitely makes it a better car. So corporate dentistry will start to learn all these things and start to bring things that can be scaled, right? But that will help dentistry get better for the masses, for sure. And I see that happening, when Invisalign launches Smile Architect. It's a clear move on trying to bring facially generated digital smile design, global diagnosis. I'm helping, for example, Align bring global diagnosis into their Smile Architect that is serving millions of dentists. And suddenly you're going to have that incorporated in a way where these ideas will help, thousands of patients.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very well said, gentlemen. So as we look back at, or look at two careers of two amazing teachers and leaders in dentistry, what's your final thoughts or hopes for not only the profession or anybody listening to this podcast?
Bill, you.
My final thought is that this is the most exciting time to be a dentist ever on earth. There is no question about it. And when I look at my son and what lies ahead for him, there's certainly a part of me that wants to remain young and viable for as long as I can to sort of share a little bit of this journey that he's going through at the beginning and I'm going through at the end. But I've never, and I'm being honest, Kirk, when I say this, I've never been more enthused about dentistry than I am today. I've got a patient in about 15 minutes. I'm going to get to do an aesthetic crown lengthening on this patient, and life is awesome as a dentist for me. It's never been better. And so I don't know who is listening today. I don't know if it's young dentists or old dentists or no dentist at all. But for the young dentist, you are well placed in the best profession on earth. There is clearly no other medical profession that compares with what we get to do. This is the best time ever to be a dentist.
I totally agree. And I would emphasize, with all the crazy artificial intelligence disruption, and literally probably in the next few years, professions will disappear almost, or will be completely changed in the next 5 to 10 years. What is going to happen in the professional world is just crazy, insane, right? But dentistry is getting even more stronger with all this advancement and more vital, because you cannot substitute that easy what we do. Less and less. And technology will always support us, but will never, at least for 100 years, will not be able to do what we do. So just to emphasize, Bill, I think that young dentists that are still struggling, did I choose the right profession? Oh my God, this is tough. Oh my God, right or wrong. You made a great decision.
So there you have it. The second part of an interview with two teachers that I love and respect so much. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you can do anything, find out a little bit more about what both of them do and get involved in what they teach. And I promise you, it'll make your practice and your life better. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.